Hi, I'm Keith Alexander. I'm an audio post guy for film and TV and everything in between. And I'm answering your questions on recording audio on location. Yes, bring in a thing called Isotope RX. I'm sure most people will heard of it at this stage. They have a suite of stuff that can do jobs. But again, you got to be really, really, really careful with it as regards how much you put on there. um, before you start hearing artifacts coming in. It started to sound a little mechanical and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, my suggestion is get it right from the get go. Now, there are plugins and stuff out there that um, pull out a lot of this kind of stuff. But I'll be honest with you, the more you put on, the worse your dialogue sounds. Because the more you put on, there's more artifacts coming in. Naturally enough. I mean, you're for a lot of the sounds that you're trying to eradicate, the frequency ranges go into human speech. So you have to try and pull those out in between your human speech. So of course artifacts start to show up, holes start to show up in your dialogue. So, and to be honest with you, right? If I'm recording, especially with film, if I'm mixing here or editing here, you know, if it was going out on YouTube, there's a lot of guys will put their dialogue isolate on, crank it on, and all you're hearing is just the words. That's all you're hearing. You're not hearing any air. Whereas for TV, for drama, for film, I can't go to that level on there because people's ears are just going to go, "What was that? How did that happen?" And it's an incredibly expensive process to try and get in and do it properly. Otherwise, you're looking at ADR. So you're hiring a studio for 200 bucks an hour, right? To get minimum, by the way, to get your ADR done. And if you're recording a whole scene or a few scenes or a load of interviews and there's a ton of noise on there that you haven't been um, hearing, it's a hugely expensive process to try and clean that up and get that sorted. And will it be usable at the end of the day anyway? For people that it's not their job to necessarily know what's right to do with the audio, leave it to the professionals. That is kind of what I'm saying. You know, don't break it. Okay. I know it needs fixing. That's why you pay me. I'll do it. It's all right. I have the toys in here. I've spent years on these toys, shed loads of money, and I know how they work, right? Don't go onto the internet and say, found this AI tool, it's brilliant because it's AI. And I'll just lash through all my dialogue. Oh no. I mean, it's that when you hear the editor say, "Oh, I just did a bit of work on the audio." Or another brilliant one I got a couple of months ago, and I won't mention who the editor was because, oh my God. He turns around and says, "Oh, you'll have hardly anything to do. I did all the sound edit anyway." Sound effects edit. And oh my God, the misappropriation of specific sound effects on specific scenes, cutting scenes. Um, it was just insane in the membrane what appropriation he was putting of his sound effects to whatever the scene was, proximity, appropriation, animals within there. Do you know what I mean? We don't necessarily have too many pink flamingos floating through Dingle Bay, in the summertime. And you got this lovely sweeping shot of the bay and you're hearing flamingos. Do you know what I mean? Just doesn't happen. We're not the upper Chilean Andes. So yeah, I would suggest we leave everyone to do their own job and do it best as they can. If you have notes, you know where to go if you have access to the files to get back and find bits and pieces that mightn't be in the foremost importance to directors, producers, and editors for cutting sound together. But when the sound is all cut together, there may be issues in there that could be resolved by getting back to the original audios, finding alternate takes, and to get in there and find wild tracks and stuff like that. Unless we have the notes, we have no clue where to go, how to find them, etc. What I would suggest is if you put a cover sheet on there. So the most important parts of your recording day should be concise and to the point on the front here. If an editor has those in front of him, where he's saying A, B, C, and D about specific interviews, about specific scenes, these are the takes I suggest you use. Take 5, it's in such and such a folder. That's the perfect take because the previous takes have aeroplane noise on it. So you really need to encourage them to see that. And then when they see the concise notes on the cover sheet, they can now open up and look and see what the story is. Because the data wrangler has literally just masses of folders of video and audio synced. So when the editor sits down on a Monday morning, if they have the notes in front of them, sitting there printed out, and these are super important points that he has to look at, he has no option but to go and check these out before he goes into the massive folder of audio and video and try and find and wrangle a whole TV show together or movie together. So notes are super, super important. They get lost in the, well, I call it the editor's black hole. That basically you get all these wonderful recordings, folders and folders of beautiful wild track and ambisonic sound and stereo sound and 5.1. And he spent thousands on his microphones and he put all this together and it's sitting in folders and it goes onto a drive and he gets concise, beautiful notes and they're all written down and they go on to a beautiful color coded PDF. And guess what happens? It sits in a drive in the edit suite and the editor goes, huh? What audio? I mean, they just, some editors just don't go near it whatsoever. It's an absolute black hole that an awful lot of audio falls through and never gets to see the light of day, by the way. And it would happen more so in broadcast, whereas they don't actually go back to listen for wild tracks and stuff like that because there might be constraints with budget and time and deliveries and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily happen film and drama because we need absolutely everything. We need the super important notes, but it would definitely happen more in broadcast. And I would suggest that it doesn't happen at all in content creation. Generally, in broadcast, the thing that's delivered to me as the mixer is an AAF, whether for Pro Tools, Nuendo, whatever DAW that I'll be working on at the time. In that AAF is the audio edit from the editor, the video editor, whose main concern would be the picture and getting the picture together, the show together, and having it looking spectacular. It's a secondary thought that they'll have for the audio. And the majority of editors seem to, I'm not going to say ignore the audio, but they don't focus as much as maybe they should. Hence, you got a hard drive full of sound effects, wild tracks, alt takes, and a PDF, colored PDF with notes to tell them exactly what's where and how to use it. And that can be ignored. So that big folder never sees the light of day. I never get to see it. So when I'm working on a TV show, I get the selected takes, which aren't necessarily the selected takes that would be appropriate to that specific take, if you understand what I mean. If there's a big bang in the middle of a sentence, there might be an alternate take that I can rob a couple of little words off to clean that up across the whole sentence. And unless I get those alternate takes, I don't have that option. So, yes, it's super important to make sure that the editor has it all, but it's also super important that the editor is using this stuff. The trouble is, in editing and editing suites, they're not monitoring in a concise room that is built for sound. They're editing in a room that could be, I don't know, 50 other people in a room with 50 other workstations. They're working off buds or ear things or little Genelecs sitting on a desk, which is not appropriate for judging the best sound for the best take. So they're grabbing these microphones and they're using that as the main take and disregarding the others. So now because I only arrive, or an AAF arrives to me purely as the carbon copy of the sound that came out of the edit suite, that is what I have to work to. I don't have anything else. So for people that would be sound recorders, it could be a really, really, really good idea just to give the mixer a call. Give him a phone call. Say, listen, I was on the job. I have all the audio here. I have all the notes. I'm just going to put it on an iCloud drive. And if that's something that could help down the road, brilliant. I absolutely, emphatically, and utterly say wild track for everything. Every interview, every scene, every situation. Always, always, always record your wild track. It's super important in so many ways, in broadcast, in film, in any sort of sound post production. The wild tracks are imperative. It's one thing to take a sample of sound from a library and plonk it in on top of your dialogue. It's not appropriate to what people are listening to, and the ears are very, 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 very acute. They'll know what is not right, if you understand what I mean. So every time somebody does an interview, director says cut, they jump into the car, move on to the next interview, or if they go on to the next scene, you have to say to the guys, could I have quiet on set, please? I need 1 minute of wild track. With specific editing packages now for video, there's dialogue isolation software that video editors are starting to feel that they should be using it. So they're ripping out all the air around your dialogue. Or else, if you're recording ADR for a movie, it's very, very beautifully clean studio audio. So wild tracks is super important for putting the appropriate ambience underneath what audio you're working to. And it's super, super important for dialogue editing as well, because there might be a little, I don't know, drop off in S's, or the end of sentences could do with a little work. And if you have to pull out little clicks and bangs and other little artifacts in the audio, it's really, really important to be able to cut in a bit of what I call air around that recording. So imagine we're down the docks beside the river, seagulls, ships going by, boats going by, stuff like that. General ambience is super important to be able to do little patches of audio either side of dialogue, speech, whatever you want to call it, on camera. And for any sound editor to have the original wild tracks is super important. And I always, 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 I work an awful lot of broadcast shows, walking shows, stuff like that. And it's super important. And I say it every time to the lads before the series kicks off, get as much wild track as you can. To go out and spend, you know, some money on hiring that guy, the sound guy, for a day and saying, listen, just show me the basics. Because as I said to you before, it's simple. The basics, get it right from the get go. Listen to what you're hearing. Make sure you're hearing what you're hearing. Okay? Make sure your levels. It's all about experience. Okay? Some Something hits the fan, you know. The high end guy knows exactly what to do because been there before. He's had sleepless nights over those times that he didn't hit record. He didn't get the right recording. The the feckin' rain came down and wiped all his cards. He's done it. Okay? The other guy, now, I don't, the middle guy, let's say, the broadcast guy, he's got to be more confident. Everyone's racing in broadcast. Everyone wants to shoot everything and go to the next thing. We're only here for a day. We can't be standing around just for the sound guy to get us. No, you can. You can, because you know what? It brings the project up. It absolutely brings the project up. And for the other guys that don't have a clue, get the confidence in yourself. Get the confidence in yourself by educating yourself. Buying that €60 mic from eBay is not going to help anyone, especially in your edit. There's a million and one videos out there on YouTube, and I promise you, they're, they're not giving you the right information either. Okay? And you really got to have the confidence to find your sources and resources to be able to teach yourself and learn from an awful lot of guys out there that will be able to give you the appropriate information, do you know, and have the confidence going forward. For professional sound recorders, small little canny stuff. I have DT 770s here, right, just in the studio, just for doing voiceover. Just so that's the voiceover artists. They put it on. They don't have to worry about the sound. Okay, they don't have to worry about the sound because I'm dealing with that. I'm the professional in the room. Whereas if I go out to record sound on location, there is nothing I will bring less than my DT 150s, because you can hear so much more bass end with this. You can hear wind, an awful lot of bass wind on these as well, that you just can't hear on other headphones, which means that with distant planes, with electrical hums, with wind, rumble, with oh, anything, there's so much that can go on. A bus going on outside, unless you get it going, unless you can hear it appropriately in proper headphones that monitor correctly, um, there's going to be a huge amount of artifacts on your recordings that goes straight to the sound editor that he mightn't necessarily, or she mightn't necessarily, be able to work on too easily. Don't go out and, as has been handed to me for corporate videos, go out with an iPad and shoot the guy that you only have 40 seconds with. It's the most important interview on the planet, and you shoot it on an iPad, bring it back, and expect the audio to be correct, especially on a windy day. Do you know, because there's nothing protecting the iPad microphone and it's just dirt. I've received those videos to say, yeah, there's the video where we got this guy, amazing interview. You can't hear anything he's saying. So if they took 30 seconds the day before to say, should I shoot it on an iPad on a windy day, or should I actually get a nice microphone, borrow it, rent it, do whatever you can, get your mates, find out what you can find from whoever. If you're in college, ask, can you borrow the gear? If you're if you know any of these guys, and you know what, it's super important to find out some of these, who these guys are. the location recording guys, the editors, the mixers. Phone them, send them an email. Generally, you'll get a response. There's an awful lot of people out there, really, really nice people that are happy to impart information. So have the confidence to connect in with them. But just get your stereo minimum, okay? You get your stereo. I've just gone into fireworks mode. Are you still there? Boom. The directors are listening.